Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky, when asked about the next presidential polls in the country, said he is open to it, but the conditions have to be right. And we are focusing on what's happening. We're getting you the details in just a bit. And we're also focusing on the latest from Venezuela, where the president has announced a massive military mobilization in response to the mounting pressure from the United States over the drug trafficking charges against him. More on that in just a bit. All this and more coming up. 6 years have passed since Ukraine last held the presidential elections. The last time when the Ukrainians headed to the ballot box, they elected Volodymyr Zelensky as their president. But as fate would have it, he then went on to become the country's wartime president. Zelensky has served as president for more than 1 year after his official term was supposed to end. The parliament postponed the vote as the country is still at war and under martial law, the law which allows Zelensky to stay in power. During a joint media briefing at the White House, Zelensky was questioned about the next presidential polls in the country. Zelensky said he is open to it, but the conditions have to be right. Listen to this.
Are you open to holding an election in your country?
Yes, of course. We are open for election, yes. We have to do safety circumstances, and a little bit we need to work in the parliament, because during the war you can't have elections, but we can do security. We need, maybe, how to say, we need a truth, yes, everywhere, in the battlefield, in the sky, and the sea, yeah, to make possible for people to do democratic, open, legal elections.
But the Ukrainian president does not enjoy the level of popularity that he once did in the immediate aftermath of the war. The concerns of the Ukrainians have been growing. Despite losing on some public support, Zelensky's approval rating, according to the latest survey, stands at 67%. But that is not the case with other leaders of his government. Only 46% of the people approve the performance of national leadership. Ukrainians are also not happy with the Zelensky-led government's track record on corruption. Nearly 85% people saying that corruption is prevalent in the government. Trust in government institutions is also eroding. When Ukrainians were asked about honesty of the elections, only 35% said that they trust the electoral process. Moreover, the trust in the national government also standing at 35%. What's also concerning is only 27% people believe the justice system. And with trust in the government eroding, the pressure is mounting on Zelensky to head for polls. But as he pursues the precondition of peace, the path to polls in Ukraine still remains unclear. The White House meeting between the Ukrainian president and US President Donald Trump and top European leaders paved the way for a Trump-Zelensky-Putin trilateral. But as things move on, the pathway for peace is looking tough as leaders pursue peace at the negotiating table. Ukrainians are reacting to what unfolded in Washington, D.C.
As I understand it, Russia wants peace, but only if we give it some territory. But I think most Ukrainians are against that, and I think it will drag on for a long time.
In general, I would like to believe it, but no matter how many meetings they have, there are no visible results. They bombed us before, and they are bombing us now, even before and after the meeting.
I don't think the war will end, but one way or another, in terms of media coverage, in terms of promoting our country, in terms of PR, I think it will have a fairly positive effect in principle.
I don't think it will do any good, because the main problem is that Putin himself doesn't want it. They can meet as many times as they want, but Putin doesn't need it, and Donald Trump doesn't really know what to do himself.
Let's now shift focus to Venezuela, where the president Nicolas Maduro has announced a massive military mobilization In response to the escalating pressure from the United States over drug trafficking charges against him, Maduro said he will be deploying more than 4.5 million militia members across the country to secure the entire national territory. Now, this move comes after Washington doubled the bounty for his arrest to $50 million. The U.S., remember, has accused him of leading a major drug trafficking network known as the Cartel de los Soles. In fact, in addition to the bounty, America has also launched anti-drug operations in the Caribbean and deployed naval assets to the southern Caribbean to crack down on narcotics trafficking. The Venezuelan Interior Minister, meanwhile, responded. He announced that Venezuelan forces have been deployed throughout the Caribbean Sea, which he described as Venezuelan territory, and vowed to defend the country's sovereignty. Maduro, meanwhile, thanked international allies for their support. He described the move by Washington, D.C. as rotten refrain of threats, quote unquote. He also called on his political base to strengthen the grassroots armed units, including the worker militias. He declared that these groups should be equipped with rifles and missiles to protect Venezuela's territory, sovereignty, and peace.
El imperio se volvió loco.
The empire has gone mad and has renewed its threats to Venezuela's peace and tranquility like a rotten rehash. So we must advance on all fronts simultaneously and prepare ourselves to win sovereignty and peace in any circumstances that may arise in the days, months, and years to come, in order to defeat U.S. imperialism once again in any form they may attempt against our noble, peaceful, hard-working, and beloved people of Venezuela.
The announcement marks an escalation in the ongoing tensions between the two sides that are signaling a willingness to defend their interests through military and paramilitary measures. Let's now switch focus to the United States, where a high-stakes redistricting battle is heating up, and the Democratic lawmakers in Texas have ended a dramatic walkout, clearing the way for the Republicans to push through a new electoral map backed by President Donald Trump. The Democratic legislators who fled Texas for 2 weeks have returned to the state capital in Austin. Their walkout had stalled business in the Republican-controlled House, blocking an aggressive mid-decade redistricting drive. In fact, with the return of the Democrat lawmakers, Republicans now have the quorum. The new congressional map will be pushed through, creating 5 additional GOP-friendly seats ahead of the 2026 midterms. President Trump posted the proposed map on his Truth Social platform, calling it one of the most popular initiatives he has ever supported. He urged Texas Republicans to pass the map as soon as possible. In a statement, the Texas House Democratic Caucus called the maps unconstitutional and vowed to build a legal record to defeat them in court, but their return also opens a new front in the nation's redistricting wars. And in a sign of an escalating political tug-of-war, the California Democrats saying that they will fight back with new maps of their own. The Democratic governor, meanwhile, announced the legislative package to place a referendum on this year's ballot, in a way rewriting California's congressional maps to offset Texas's new Republican seats. And let's go straight across now to our correspondent, Susan Teherani, who's with us on the broadcast from New York. Susan, this redistricting battle, help our viewers understand how crucial it really is ahead of the midterm elections, because the battle is only heating up, and President Trump claims that this is one of the most popular initiatives he has supported. And what is he really basing that on?
Yeah, that's a very valid point. It is very crucial, especially since 2026 is just right around the corner. Usually redistricting in the United States happens every 10 years. It's not illegal or against the Constitution to do this mid-decade redistricting if, for example, the makeup of different cities, states, and districts change. The Republicans say their justification is after the 2024 election, with President Trump being elected, they saw massive support, notably from Black and Latino voters in Texas. So that's how they're justifying it. But nonetheless, other states, other Democrat-run states, are going to also either try to redraw their maps to offset. As you mentioned, California might be one. Of course, they have a separate independent redistricting committee. We'll have to see how Gavin Newsom wants to go around that. But here in New York as well, which is a very blue state, they're also thinking of, possibly doing this mid-decade redistricting just to offset what's happening in Texas. But nonetheless, it appears that the Texas one is going to go through, and Texas may gain up to 5 Republican seats going into the 2026 midterms. But nonetheless, this is not the last that we are going to be hearing of this redistricting and so-called gerrymandering, and the fight is going to continue for sure.
All right, we'll keep coming back to you as and when further updates trickle in. Thanks very much for now, Susan. All right, staying on with the United States, in a recent survey, U.S. President Donald Trump's approval rating has matched its lowest level of his current term, holding steady at 40%. And the 6-day poll was conducted amid signs of a weakening U.S. labor market and the backdrop of significant policy moves by President Trump, including a broad immigration crackdown and intense diplomatic efforts to broker peace between Russia and Ukraine. According to the Reuters Ipsos poll, 54% of the respondents, including 1 in 5 Republicans, believe that Trump is too closely aligned with Russia, as he appeared to embrace Russia's stance that Ukraine must cede territory to Russia in order for the war to stop. Trump met with the Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday, remember, and the poll closed just ahead of the president's meeting on Monday with the Ukrainian president. And according to the poll, 42% respondents approve of Trump's handling of crime, while 43% approve of him handling the immigration policy. Since taking office, President Trump has implemented a large-scale crackdown on undocumented immigrants, sparking protests, particularly in parts with significant Latino populations. And more recently, Trump sent federal agents and National Guard troops to Washington, D.C., to bolster law enforcement, claiming that crime was out of control. And according to the Reuters Ipsos poll, an overall of 40% Americans approved of Trump's performance, while only 32% of Hispanic voters shared a similar view. Trump's rating has remained unchanged since late July, but dropped 7 percentage points since he assumed office in January. On to India now, where the country's opposition alliance has announced its candidate for the vice presidential elections. The bloc has put its weight behind former Supreme Court Judge B. Sudarshan Reddy. He will be against the Maharashtra Governor C.P. Radhakrishnan, who is the candidate of the ruling alliance NDA. Justice Reddy's name was announced at a press conference in New Delhi. The Congress president said that Justice Reddy is one of India's most distinguished and progressive jurists with an eminent legal career. Listen in. B. Sudarshan Reddy is a career lawyer who later joined the judicial services. He started his career as a judge in 1995 and ended it while service as a judge in India's apex court in 2011. He was also appointed as the first Lokayukta of Goa in 2013. The BJP-led National Democratic Alliance, or NDA, has announced the Maharashtra Governor C.P. Radhakrishnan as the vice presidential candidate for the upcoming polls. With over 4 decades of experience in politics and governance, C.P. Radhakrishnan is widely seen as a seasoned leader. Born in the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu, Radhakrishnan is a 2-time Lok Sabha MP from Coimbatore and held key parliamentary roles. Later in Tamil Nadu, he rose to prominence as the state BJP president, followed by his stint as BJP's All India in charge for Kerala from 2020 to 2022. In 2023, appointed governor of Jharkhand, and in July 2024, he took charge as the governor of Maharashtra. And as things stand, the NDA holds majority in both houses of parliament, while the opposition bloc remains far behind with over 300 members. The combined strength of both houses of 781, that sets the magic number for the vice president election to 392 votes. With the NDA alliance having support of over 400. In fact, the candidate having the backing of the ruling party will likely get elected. The opposition might have a chance on the vice presidential post only if massive number of MPs cross vote against the announced candidates. In fact, the vice presidential election will be taking place on the 9th of September with the last date to file nominations on the 21st of August. Votes will be counted immediately after polling concludes, and the results will be announced on the same day. A wave of deadly attacks in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo left at least 52 civilians dead, including women and children. The United Nations and local officials confirming that rebels linked to the Islamic State, known as the Allied Democratic Forces or ADF, carried out the massacres between August 9 and 16. The attacks took place in the Beni and Lubero regions of North Kivu province. Villages were raided and civilians killed. In fact, according to the local military administrators, 30 people were killed in Melia village alone. Officials also say that these were retaliatory strikes after the ADF suffered recent defeats at the hands of the Congolese government forces. The ADF has been active in the region for years and is one of the most violent extremist groups operating in Central Africa. They are known for targeting civilians and spreading fear in remote communities. The United Nations mission in Congo has condemned the violence in the strongest possible terms. A spokesperson said the death toll could still rise as search operations continue. The Congolese authorities and international peacekeepers remain on alert as efforts intensify to locate the survivors and prevent further attacks. On to Chile now, which is heading towards a highly polarized presidential election on the 16th of November, with a Communist Party candidate and a far-right veteran politician leading the field. According to analysts, the race has come to symbolize a deep political divide there, with the leftist candidate and the right-wing figure currently running neck and neck in most polls. 8 candidates have registered for the race, but the competition is primarily shaped by these two. The two candidates representing opposite ends of the political spectrum of the country in a way. Cast, a 59-year-old conservative who lost to President Gabriel in the 2021 runoff. He is campaigning on a platform of tough security measures. He has promised to form an emergency government to fight organized crime and reclaim public spaces. And in contrast, Jara, a 51-year-old lawyer and former Labour Minister under Boric, is positioning herself as a centre-left candidate, despite her roots in the Communist Party. She oversaw key Labour reforms and claims to represent a broad coalition that includes Christian Democrats. Experts say her challenge is to unify her base without being limited by her party label. Jara herself has distanced herself publicly from communist leaders in Cuba and Venezuela. And trailing just behind the frontrunners is the conservative ex-mayor and economist. They are in a tight race for third place. Mathe, who is a political veteran, had been leading in polls until recently, while Parisi, who is known for his 2021 social media campaign, is once again tapping into populist sentiments. The remaining candidates include libertarian Johannes Kesa, former football administrator Harold Main Nichols, among others. Chile appears set for a high-stakes showdown that will determine the direction of its post-pandemic future. In yet another setback to the Spanish Prime Minister, his wife has been charged with embezzlement of public funds. And this comes at a time when Sanchez's government is already shaken by corruption scandals involving senior Socialist Party figures. Gomez, along with Cristina Alvarez, an official employed at the Prime Minister's office, has also been charged with the same crime. The duo has been summoned to appear in court in September and will have to answer allegations over the misuse of state resources, allegedly, in connection with Gomez's academic post at a university in Madrid. Gomez allegedly ran a course at the university despite lacking a degree, allegedly. And Gomez's aide, Alvarez, allegedly carried out work for Gomez's university chair, thereby diverting public resources for private purposes, allegedly. In fact, the Prime Minister has maintained that his wife is innocent and has termed what he calls an attack by the right-wing opposition to undermine his government. And the Prime Minister has been fighting for his political survival since his right-hand man was held without bail on suspicion of bribery, criminal conspiracy and influence peddling in June. The inquiry into his wife had dominated political and judicial debates for more than a year. The case began in April last year with allegations of influence peddling and corruption in business. It has since widened to include accusations of misappropriation and professional intrusion. Sanchez's family has been roiled in corruption scandals. Sanchez's brother is facing corruption and influence peddling charges. His attorney general has been charged with leaking documents in a court case involving the partner of a conservative political rival. Violence has erupted on the streets of Serbia. Protesters demanding early elections have attacked offices of the president's ruling party. Month-long anti-government demonstrations have escalated in recent times. What started out as a student-led movement for justice has now spiraled into Serbia's biggest political challenge in years. Several thousand protesters took to the streets of Belgrade and other parts. They are demanding early elections and an end to the president's more than decade-long rule. In Belgrade, riot police clashed with demonstrators after they attacked the offices of the Serbian Progressive Party. Protesters hurled rocks and stun grenades. Police responded with force to push them back, reportedly.
Valjevske gimnazije gdje je skup i počeo, žandarmerije.
The anger has been building up since November when a tragic train station collapse killed 16 people. Students initially demanded a transparent investigation, blaming corruption for the disaster. But since May, the protests have grown into a wider political movement calling for the leader to step down and for new elections to be held. Offices of the party have been targeted across the country, and the president has rejected demands for early elections, calling the movement a foreign-backed plot to overthrow his government. In a show of defiance, meanwhile, the Serbian president showed up at his party's damaged office. He called the protesters terrorists and said that the attack on his party offices shows what kind of thugs and violent people they are dealing with. Those were the words used. He also vowed that he will not back down or run away.
But we will not back down, we will not run away. We will go to every place, we will show up at every place, and we will raise our resistance at every place.
That's all we have time for in this edition of Race to Power. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks for watching.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra